Welcome to the Australian Business Executive Podcast, where we speak with Australia's most influential industry professionals on the business and economic development issues taking place across the country. You can stay up to date with all our content, including our magazines, podcasts and videos by visiting www.theabe.com.au and clicking on subscribe.
Today's guest is Les Tillack, Managing Director of Luina Bio. Luina Bio is one of Australia's most experienced biopharmaceutical contract and development manufacturing organizations. They perform GMP manufacture of recombinant proteins, vaccines, and live biotherapeutics. Les is the CEO of the organization and leads the team's innovation and committed pursuit to this world-leading contract manufacturing. A biotech expert, he brings over 2 decades of experience ensuring the organization is able to continuously adapt to the needs of the industry. Les, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks.
So firstly, why don't you give us an overview of what Luina Bio does by breaking up that introduction a bit further?
Sure. So what we do in essence is make drugs, biopharmaceutical drugs, for use in human clinical trials. So when drugs are being developed, they have to go through an extensive safety and efficacy testing process, which are called clinical trials. So we manufacture drugs for other companies that are intending to test their drugs in clinical trials, and we do the manufacturing of those drugs particularly in the early phases of that testing before the companies will then go off and find a commercial manufacturer or in fact build their own facilities. So we manufacture 2 main types of drugs. We manufacture recombinant protein drugs, so they are drugs where a custom protein has been designed to mimic various biologic activities in the body. So we take bacteria that have been genetically modified to then express and produce those proteins. We purify the proteins. So the other types of drugs we manufacture is a very exciting, fairly new class of drugs in development in the microbiome space. I'm sure most people have heard of microbiome. So that involves the healthy flora of bacteria that people normally have both inside and outside their bodies. And the theory around microbiome is that various disease states are being caused by having an imbalance of unhealthy and healthy organisms. So there's been a lot of development happening now in manufacturing of live microbial biotherapeutics, which are essentially live bacteria, which are then used in these microbiome therapies. And we have become involved in the manufacture of those products as well.
Okay. You briefly mentioned some of the organizations who reach out to you, but can you tell us a little bit more about who your clients would be?
So our clients are generally drug development companies and pharmaceutical companies that are developing new products as well. Our customers tend to come from overseas. We have a small number of Australian customers, but I think in the last year, about 90 to 95% of our work has come from overseas. So they can be smaller companies that have taken a product that's been developed at a university or research institute, which has been spun out into a development company, right through to large pharmaceutical companies, multinational pharmaceutical companies that also have drugs in development that want to use the services of a contract manufacturer rather than their own facilities.
Interesting. You had mentioned a lot of overseas clients. What is the reputation of Australia within this sector being, sort of tucked away down in the bottom of the globe? So
it is a difficult sell. We are a long way from the rest of the world, and it's interesting. So the reason a lot of people get interested in coming to Australia to work is the R&D tax incentive. So a lot of people overseas have heard of the R&D tax incentive, and it's why they're interested in talking to Australia in the first place. And then they come and talk to us and then end up staying for other reasons. But we do have very good reputation in Australia. The regulatory system around manufacture of pharmaceutical products is very good in Australia, and everything we do is well recognised internationally.
Okay. A few years ago, we had the chance to do the first story that we did when you guys were known as Pharmasynth, and you've recently changed your name to Luina Bio, which is what you trade under now. What prompted the name change?
So we used to be a company, as you said, we were called Pharmasynth, and we were wholly owned subsidiary of a drug development company called Progen Pharmaceuticals. So just over 3 years ago now, an opportunity arose to buy the Pharmasynth company from Progen through a management buyout. So a number of us in the company and some other investors bought the PharmaSynth company from Progen, and it's now an independently held entity. So we also, as part of that, decided to rebrand and rechange and focus the direction of the company, and we made the decision to change the name to Luina Bio instead of PharmaSynth, because PharmaSynth was a little bit confusing in the name because it's made it sound like we're a synthetic chemistry company rather than a biologics company.
Fair enough. And, part of the reason you wanted to look at doing this story again is because the company's been experiencing some significant growth. Do you want to tell us about the recent success you've been having?
Sure. So as PharmaSynth, PharmaSynth came into existence in 2008. Before that, we were a part of Progen. So we've actually been performing contract manufacturing services for about 25 years in one way or another, and never particularly successfully as a business. There's always been a lot of other competing interests to what we were doing. So now that we have, a complete mandate to chase the business, we've actually been very successful with it. So 3.5 years ago, when we had the MBO, we had 12 staff. Today we have 65 staff. We are currently recruiting another 15 to 20 staff. We'll be about 85 people in a couple of months from now, and we're actually projecting that 2 to 3 years from now we'll have somewhere around 300 to 350 staff. Revenue has increased fivefold over the 3 years. We are significantly profitable. 2017 we won the Queensland Export Awards in the health and biotechnology category, and in 2018 we were a winner in the Westpac Top 200 Companies of Tomorrow. So things are going very well.
Fantastic. Okay. And are there a lot of competitors within your industry down here? What are the what are the USPs that you sell your business on?
So I guess there is not a lot of competition in Australia. So there's one other contract manufacturing company also located here in Brisbane, which is owned by a multinational called Thermo Fisher, and they manufacture products, monoclonal antibody drugs from mammalian cell culture. So we have a completely different service. We manufacture from bacterial and yeast fermentation, so we're quite different to them. So internationally, there is a number of other companies that do what we do, but we do have some unique selling points, and the first of them really is around flexibility. So we really have a company policy based around the mantra of how hard can it be. So let me give an example there. So we have become involved in manufacture of microbiome products, as I said, and most of those products involve growing very, very hard to grow anaerobic organisms, which means that they have to be grown without any oxygen present in any of the manufacturing process. So about 3 years ago, we were approached by a fairly large US drug development company, and we were asked if we could manufacture those products. Could we grow anaerobic organisms under GMP? And our answer to that was, well, we've never done that before, but how hard can it be? And so 48 hours later, we had one of the senior people from that company sitting in our facility discussing this. And we were the 40th contract manufacturer around the world that they had spoken to. Wow. And we were the first to say that we would give it a go. And the answer to the question was, well, actually very, very hard. But it was something that we persevered with and have become now one of the world leaders in the space. We speak at a lot of the technical conferences, and we have technical expertise probably better than anybody else in the world in this space. We have a very, very high success rate in growing these organisms, and we know that we're doing very well in comparison to our competitors internationally.
Okay. From a larger perspective, how would you describe current market conditions within your industry, and for your business, you seem quite bullish about your near-term future?
Sure. So we definitely see that there is a huge potential for growth in production of products from bacterial fermentation. So not just in the microbiome space, though the growth in that area really is exponential at the moment. It is the next big thing in drug development, and everybody is rushing to get on the bandwagon with that one. We probably have about 30 discussions running at the moment with potential clients who are looking for manufacturing in that space. The growth also in the recombinant protein space is very good as well. New technologies are being developed which allow products to be manufactured using bacterial expression systems rather than mammalian expression systems, which result in a much lower cost of goods. So we're seeing growth in that area as well.
Okay. At a macro level, can you tell people like myself and some of our other listeners, what are the industry issues that are taking place at the moment?
So I think in terms of issues, particularly in Australia, I mentioned that we have very few customers from Australia. It's not because there aren't potential products to be manufactured for Australian companies. The real issue in Australia is a lack of accessible capital for drug development companies, so for our customers to take their products into clinical development. It's very, very expensive, and it is difficult compared to the US and Europe, where the capital seems to be freely flowing and large amounts of money are being raised for drug development. One of the issues I mentioned that we have a lot of growth in the microbiome product manufacturing space. The space is actually very, very new. It's really only existed in the last 3 to 5 years as even a concept of taking live bacterial products into the pharmaceutical space. So the regulatory environment, the FDA, the TGA, the other regulators around the world are really rushing to try and develop a regulatory system around those products. So that is leading to a fast-changing environment. The rules around what can and can't be done in this space from the regulators are changing sort of on a yearly basis at the moment. And it's a bit of a challenge manufacturing products and developing products in a space where the regulatory environment is changing so fast.
Okay. And look, before we wrap up for today, is there anything else that you'd like to add or address that we haven't had a chance to speak about?
Sure. So I think we could go back and touch on where we're going in terms of the growth of the company. Okay. So the other thing that we've done, so we started off life in an existing manufacturing facility that we purchased as part of the MBO. Since then, in the last few months, we've just opened a new manufacturing facility just in the local area close to the existing facility to perform process development work and give us additional laboratory space and storage space. But I guess the big new thing coming up for us is the development of a much larger manufacturing facility to give us bigger capacity. The biggest problem we have, the biggest challenge we actually face at the moment is the fact that the facility we have now is essentially sold out for more than 12 months. So we're having trouble actually fitting new customers into the facility. So we're looking to develop and build a new facility. We're expecting to start construction on that early next year and have manufacturing happening towards the later part of next year.
Excellent. Well, Les, thanks very much for your time today.
Sure. No problems.
This has been a production of the Australian Business Executive, a division of Romulus Rising Proprietary Limited. All rights reserved. You can stay up to date with the Australian Business Executive, including our magazines, podcasts and videos by visiting www.theabe.com.au and clicking on subscribe.